Ah, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching CORP Exchange, and we're just doing a little economics corner thing here. And my name's Lord IBO Reese Hodds, and since they know we're gonna hashtag economics, like my good man MP says, economics is what makes the world go round. And you're watching a Castle International Economics Corner report on Corp Exchange Television. So basically, what this is a conversation with me. For all y'all who can see, just wave with me like this. So we were talking about the wealth gap. Now, what were we saying about the wealth gap? Oh, the reason why you have the wealth gap is because, conservatives brought up earlier, you have, if you don't do drugs and alcohol, tobacco, you get an education and you don't have children before you're ready to have children, then you're guaranteed not to live in poverty. Now, with that being said, there's wealth gaps, there's classes. So since the last administration, now the United States of America has a class system. So, we come up playing ball, so we're looking at, you have young people, the younger generation, still young, 30, 35, 40 years old, and they're super millionaires. Now, I know this is their money, but they're able to help their communities and help their friends and to create businesses, and they're young, they're not 70, 60 years old like most successful businessmen that are now super millionaires, you know what I'm saying? So there's a different level of wealth in the country. So what we see in our firms, in our investment firms, the average person has an account which is about $300,000, $250,000, and a good strong firm. I'm not going to put everybody's numbers out there, but you would have more than a couple of these. You see what I'm saying? Now, whatever you charge and everything, that's on you. So the average wealth, you want to say the wealth gap, you have to grow this wealth. It doesn't grow on trees. You know, 95% of all the people I work with or to come talk to me, they didn't inherit this money. You see what I'm saying? They didn't win it in the lottery. They worked their asses off and they got this money. And now they invest the money properly and they have wealth. So, what your wealth gap is, you have more than half of the country, you say, doesn't have $50 in their bank account right now, much less $4 in their pocket to buy a fish fillet. So the wealth gap, generally speaking, says, you gotta apply yourself. You have to, if you can make it, because what we see is in this country we have a lot of immigration. So what we see is immigrants come here and they keep their families together. Imagine you're an immigrant, you come to the United States of America, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, bright lights, women, cars, houses, everything's fancy. You might look at your spouse and say, I'm trading up. But most of these people don't do that. What they end up doing is they stay together and they bring their kids in and they do the remedial jobs and they make a better path for their legacy. And then their legacy gets the chance to go, because education is past them. You know what I'm saying? Their opportunity is gone. They're 40, 50, they're gone. But they have kids, so they do better. So their kids could get better. And as their children get better, they accumulate wealth. And obviously, it's not rocket science. They'll accumulate more wealth than their parents, quicker, much more faster, and everything. So that's pretty much in the United States of America what the wealth gap is. If you fired off in life and you didn't make it, and you have children, if you're interested and this means something to you moving forward, you want to say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I work and do something, or I get property, or I manage my blessings right, so my children my offspring can come in and do better than I am. That way, when people look back and say, well, count your wealth, you'll say, well, that the father worked, he was a manager in the Publix, and the kids now, this one went on to law school, You know what I'm saying? And then you just keep going and going and going and until you're just wealthy. That's what the wealth gap is. Most people who are wealthy in this country were not born wealthy. You see what I'm saying? Most people had to struggle and stride and do whatever it is you had to do. God willing, you didn't break any laws to get where you needed to be. So it's not about the 1% controlling all the money in the thing. Of course, if you have money, you're going to be an investor and you're going to make more money. Because what is this the smart thing, the genius thing in this country is you use money to make money, right? The people with money, like a good example of, well, I don't even want to put anybody else on in my thing, but the way you make it is if you become wealthy through sports, entertainment, whatever, you're going to use that money to buy a business, which is going to create jobs and make you more money. So you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. You got to do something. So just harking on the wealth gap, you have to realize this opportunity, your blessing, and you have to make sure that you keep it going. You can't say, well, it's just me, 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 me. Especially if you have children, you need to raise them right, train them right, and put them in society so they can work, educate, and then they can teach their children that way. And then when you start looking back at the line of your family and your family history or ancestry, then you will say, well, that was a wealthy family. Those people are wealthy. You see what I'm saying? And your great grandkids, they might not have to worry about how they're going to pay their light bill, or can we afford Parmesan cheese, or can we have a vacation every other year, or how am I going to go to college? You see what I'm saying? Because you've already set a system for your family where, yeah, of course you're going to go to college. Of course you're going to work. You're going to get a top job and be competitive, and you're going to work. So just putting it, just putting a few nuts and bolts together on the Castle International versus Economics Corner is the wealth gap, because it keeps coming up and it involves wages, but pretty much it's just being blessed. Now, being blessed doesn't mean you believe in God. Being blessed versus being lucky, and educating and hard work. Being a good, hard-working person. And most likely, in this country, United States of America, says it's hard to keep a good man down. So if you just work hard, educate yourself, because the wealth gap really now is, you have the super wealthy. So we're not talking about the 1%. We're not talking about the basketball guys with $50 million and living the dream. We're not talking, that's a different level. Those are the higher, the lesser percent. You're talking more about people who, school teachers, firemen, managers in grocery stores, people who work in car washes, and most of the people with the education, they start out faster versus those who have to start out with no education and run up the corporate ladder and move up in the business. Then you have the business people. So the person, the ones making the 100,000s, those are the wealthy people. You're making close to 100, 150,000. You're pretty wealthy. If you manage your money right, inflation is skyrocketing. It's way out of control now. We see that in South Florida with real estate. The rents in real estate are like super. They just keep climbing. It just keeps going up and up and up and up. And there's no cap. There's no regulation to say, wow, I have this house right here. The most I can get for it is $1,200 a month. No, they're already up to like $2,600 a month for a regular 3-bedroom apartment in a shabby neighborhood. You see what I'm saying? So there's a cap on what you can sell the property, but there's not a cap on what you can rent the property. So we have a big, big homeless problem down here, and that pushes the wealth gap. That helps the wealth gap because it makes more people poorer. It gives more on the bottom of the totem pole. It gives more. There's more action. There's more noise. There's more movement. There's more traffic. So you have to think about that. Then you have people who work. See what I'm saying? So the people who are working, they're making what, 15, 18, 20,000 starting out. You can do some things with that. You can get a nice apartment. You can get a nice house. Depending on your credit and what you can do that. You have to save your money. You're not going to drive an Audi. You might drive a used Volvo, but you're not going to drive a. You're not going to. What are you going to pay $600 a month for a brand new car? That's not. That's. You might not even have cable TV. Make it $16,000-$17,000 a year. You might not even have a car. You might not have designer shoes or can afford some Braga design like this, like you see the shirt versus the tie. This is a hump day outfit. This is something you would wear on. Excuse me. This is an advertisement we didn't get in the beginning. You can get the tie for about $75. That's dirt cheap because of the material. It's a cheap tie. And the shirt you can pick up. It's actually a polo shirt, a Braga design polo shirt, and you can get that for $250. So you might not be able to afford Braga design, but you're trying to save money. You're not trying to afford. You're trying to save your money so you can put your money to work so you can create more wealth. The people who have education, if you have a regular 4-year degree out of the local university, you come into the same job, the same workplace, you'll probably start making $40,000 a year versus this person who just walked in with maybe a criminal record or no education or no training making $16,000 if you're lucky. So that's a big part of the wealth gap, right? Or no training. So you have to have education and training. Versus the person who walks in with nothing, you're gonna make $17,000, $18,000, while this person's gonna make $45,000 starting. Then if you have an MBA or you have your master's degree, you can make even more money. Then you move up, depending on what kind of industry you're in, and you make even more money. But at the end of the day, someone told me it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with your money. And on the flip side of that token, it's not what you know all the time, it's who you know. So with that being said, we're just having a little, open discussion, a new thing we just got approved for on CORP Exchange Television. And of course, Lord IBO Reese Yards will be hosting it. And we'll probably have some guests. And we'll just be discussing the wealth gap because, human beings in this economy, they like success is good if it's great, great, great success, but failure is even better. So conversation-wise, and we do hashtags and everything to promote your, just advertising. And people like to hear more about strife and despair more than they like to hear about success. And we're just going to be talking because the wealth gap is coming up in politics. We just put in a report a couple years ago on where we saw the wealth gap, and we want to just keep that going because the wealth gap is something that moves with time. As the quality of life moves up, as people, as your economy expands, as emerging markets emerge, as time travels, it flies, or whatever you want to call it, wealth increases. So wealth is like running. Him and inflation are like zoo like this. You see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? You want to keep the wealth in front of the inflation. And then there's like a rule and regulation. Like I say, the $30 million guys, congratulations, you've done very well for yourself. But what happens there is they're not part of the bulk of the argument because a lot of people are struggling to put food on the table, to make ends meet. Let's just make ends meet. The person making the $30 million, he's not worried, or who has $30 or $40 million, they're not worrying about, oh damn, my wife just spit out a kid. Oh, how is this kid going to go to school? Because education price is going up. So if you have that kind of money, you just, the kid's born, you look at him and say, yeah, he has my eyes, and you just write a check for his education. You see what I'm saying? His education is paid for by the time he's finished. His college education is paid for by the time he's finished 8th grade. Well, most people make their kid. You make your kid earn it, but you don't have to. You sleep at night because you can do this. So there's more to come with the wealth gap. Again, my name's Lord IBO Reese Yards. You're watching Castle International versus Economics Corner special on CORP Exchange Television. And don't forget, check out your Braga design. Spring 2020 Braga design. And also, economics is what makes the world go round. Thank you. Again, I'm Lord IBO Reese Hard. You're watching CORP Exchange Television. And this is Casual International versus Economics Corner. And you'll see us again pretty soon as we discuss more on the wealth gap. Thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.